So where should we go swimming today? Summer outside, it's hot, it's very nice outside. Where should we go swimming? Should we go to Sunsplash Water Park in Cape Coral, or should we go to the Caloosahatchee River after they've been letting water out of Lake Okeechobee? My guess is your answer would be Sunsplash Water Park. Why would that be? Well, first of all, there's no gators there. And second of all, the water there has been treated, it's been cleaned, it's been filtered, and it's safe for drinking and swimming in. My name is Jeff Neuenschwander, and I began working on this project, researching this project in June of 2020. We're going to talk today about how water treatment plants work. With a little bit of research and facts, we're going to show you how water is collected, how water is treated, and then how it's distributed into the water supply. And then we'll look at alternatives for people who may not live in municipality areas, and then we'll look at alternatives for people who live near salt water. Now, according to an NPR article entitled Water Treatment, dated June 20th, 2015, at the URL listed below, drinking water supplies in the United States are among the safest in the world. Now, why is that? It was because the United States has the highest standards in the world, and we also have the more effective treatments of treating water in the world. So how do we treat our water? Well, water is brought up from the ground, from lakes, rivers, streams, or aquifers, into big collecting tanks. There are 4 steps to the water treatment process itself. The first 2 steps are coagulation, flocculation. The second 2 steps, well, let's get into coagulation and flocculation first. The process of coagulation involves introducing chemicals into the water, which allow the larger particles to collect together in a clump into larger particles called floc. This floc settles into the bottom of the collection tank and is emptied out as sludge, while the cleaner water in the top of the tank is moved on to the next step of the process. Now, the other 2 parts of the process are filtration and disinfection. The filtration process allows the water to be filtered through different layers from coarse to fine sand, which removes viruses and bacteria from the water. After the water's been filtered, it's then moved on to the disinfection process, where chlorine and chloramine are introduced to the water to disinfect and further take any other nitrates, viruses, or bacteria out of the water. Why do we treat our water? Well, we treat water to prevent viruses, bacteria, nitrates, pesticides from coming into our drinking water. Now, according to a CDC article dated August 14th, 2015, called Surveillance for Waterborne Disease Outbreaks Associated with Drinking Water, at the URL listed below, for 2011-2012, 32 drinking water associated outbreaks were reported, accounting for at least 431 cases of illness, 102 hospitalizations, and 14 deaths. Most of those were cases of legionellosis, which is a more severe form of pneumonia. Many people do not have access to fresh drinking water from a municipal water supply. These people live in rural areas and have access to private wells. It's estimated that 43 million people in the United States, which is 15% of our population, live in an area where they're dependent on a private well. Now, there are no state or local regulations on how clean the water from the public well should be. It's up to the homeowner to decide how clean their water should be and if the water is fit for their drinking. Many houses have an under-the-sink reverse osmosis process, which filters out their drinking water, and then they'll use the regular well water for bathing and cleaning dishes and things like that. There are also people who live in large municipalities, such as New York City, which rely on watersheds to collect the filtered water. A watershed is a large collecting pond or a lake where water flows down from farms and other land upstream. It's collected into the holding pond, and it is naturally filtered as it comes along through various farming practices and conservation techniques. In fact, the water in New York City is so good that they skip the filtration process altogether, and the water goes directly to the disinfection process as a result of how is treated at the plant, the water is then delivered from the holding tanks into the general water supply, has to maintain a pressure of 40 pounds per square inch to be able to be distributed out into the water supply. There are some people who live in western states such as California, Arizona, or Colorado, which have a higher level of salt or salinity in the water. For these areas, they rely on desalination plants in order to remove the salt from the water. Now, there are two methods of desalination. The first is called reverse osmosis, where the water is pushed through membranes at a very high pressure, which allows the water molecules to pass through, leaving behind the salt molecules, which are then disposed of. The clean water is then processed for distribution into the water supply. The other is the thermal process, where water is boiled. The fresh water is collected as steam and then condensed back into fresh drinking water, and then the salt is removed and disposed of from the plant. So to conclude, we looked at various ways of how water is treated, the treatment process itself, how it's collected and distributed into the water supply. Our goal was to help you understand a little bit about how water is treated and the benefits or calamities that might befall us if we're drinking untreated or unfresh water. We defined the treatment process, and then to wrap up, to quote a 2020 article on the Short Sleeve Club, Trevor English is quoted as saying, "Access to fresh water is one of the largest drivers of creating a modern society," and that couldn't be more true. In underdeveloped areas of the world, we see that civilization is not catching up as it is in areas where people have access to better fresh water. It is a very large driving factor in the larger economies of the world. Thank you very much for watching this presentation. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.